I think over the course of the war in Iran, we focused a lot on drone technology and other missile technology. But with the Strait of Hormuz in particular, now that domain is becoming increasingly important. I think just explain your conviction and thesis with Ulysses as a case study.
Yeah, first, thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to be here. The ocean is a largely unexplored and unconquered territory. Right. And it's kind of remarkable how little innovation there has been in maritime over the last, half century, despite how much it's grown in its strategic importance for the United States and globally. I mean, if you think about the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine, the first thing that Russia did was cut Ukraine's undersea fiber so that they didn't have any internet access. You just mentioned we're seeing this again in Iran with the Strait and how much global tension and conflict that's caused, and expect something similar if that we were ever to be in conflict in the Pacific theater with the South China Sea. So, really this was a market and an area very much hungry for innovation. If you look at our submarine capabilities, they haven't really advanced in half a century. It costs billions of dollars.
The distinction is that manned submarine versus
manned submarine. We're talking about 130 people on a crew of a multi-billion-dollar complicated machine that takes a decade to build, and these are people who are putting their lives at risk. And many of the things that we need to worry about in the ocean today, whether it's on the commercial side from inspecting oil and gas or deep sea mining or offshore wind or other assets through to the defense space, like a lot of those use cases actually don't need manned crews to be able to accomplish really important missions.
I just want to point out, Erin, if you bear with me, that right now the story in public markets is stocks are higher, technology stocks in particular, on hope and optimism that over this weekend there will be peace talks between the United States and Iran. And we're here principally to talk about private markets, but I think there's been a bit of a disconnect, right, in understanding something that's happening live in real time, a conflict like the one in Iran, and how that's given momentum to the industries and areas that you want to invest in. Yes. Has it got people moving?
Yes, it's a really, really good question, and it has. I think it's been a real forcing function. It's put a magnifying glass up to our defense base and how ill-prepared we would be for a major conflict. And it's helped speed up a lot of the procurement processes and conversations with the Department of War. So we're seeing the Department of War come to our early stage companies and say, how fast can you deliver 100? How fast can you deliver 1,000? How fast can you deliver 10,000? And really start to change their thinking around what the requirements are, what matters, and how do we make sure that we have the production scale capacity to be able to fight in a future conflict. So I'm very hopeful for peace in the Middle East, and also this has been a real wake-up call for our Defense Department for what we really have to do and how we have to support the defense industrial base in order to be prepared for a future conflict.
Even in the domain of the ocean, Anduril is an interesting case study as well, right? That, they have focused a lot, not just on the technology, autonomous vehicles in the water, but where they're placed around the world. Mm-hmm. But one data set, our Bloomberg Tech producer, Zoe Thomas, always sort of tracks the declassified spends and where that dollar goes to Lockheed Martin still. In the aquatic context, is that the same story? That even if Ulysses and Anduril do move fast, the legacy primes are getting all of the government spending?
Well, let's take Ulysses as the example. So they didn't start the company as a defense prime. They started the company, the first use cases of the company were seagrass planting, seafloor restoration, energy inspection, port inspection. And essentially they were working on use cases that had very strong cost curves where their customers couldn't pay more than $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for a unit to make the economics work. So they had to really focus on high quality engineering to build a very low cost and highly manufacturable, scalable product for their commercial customers. And, they have lots of operational experience in the field, fielding these units for real use cases in the ocean. And, we're talking $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a pop for their UUVs. And so the Defense Department comes and sees that, and they're like, You've got to be kidding me. We're paying for the exact same thing. We're paying $2, $3, $4, $5 million a pop. You're telling me I can buy this for $40,000? So they have work to do to catch up in terms of proving out their tech in real missions. But when you're talking about 2 or 3 orders of magnitude cost difference for virtually the same thing, I think it's just a matter of time before we see these defense tech startups start to catch up to the primes.
Erin, it's been really interesting reading about you. Not just what you were focused on at Index before Andreessen, but you are a Palantirian as well. I think just spend the last couple of minutes that we have talking about the American Dynamism team, but also your experience in industry and how that carries over in how you act as an investor.
Yeah, I think, my time at Palantir really shaped...
Is that the right term, by the way? Palantirian, sorry.
Well, it used to be hobbits, but I prefer Palantirians. It really shaped the way I think about not just technology, but technology's role in the world. Like Palantir, the thing that I'm so grateful for, really ran towards the fire and was like, we want to work on the hardest problems. They might be controversial, they might be really hard, they're not sexy, and we want to go where the important conversations are happening and where the important things are being solved. And we want to be close to the problem, on the ground, with our users, with our customers. So that's really shaped how I think about investing in technology today. First of all, the critical industries that power our economy. We're talking about manufacturing, energy, supply chain, critical minerals and mining, defense, aerospace. This is what the U.S. economy has historically been based on, and yet these sectors have largely been not disrupted by technology for decades and decades. So there's so much room for innovation to happen. But to solve these problems, you really have to get into the meat of them. You can't solve mining from an office building in San Francisco. You can't solve energy unless you're really putting boots on the ground and understanding how our grid works. So that's what we're very excited about.